Hello.
We're live.
We are live on October 10th.
Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning.
It's go time. It's 8 a.m.
It's 8 a.m.
It's Thursday.
I'm still unaware of what's happening in my life.
I mean, yeah, I feel that.
It's too early in the morning for this.
Yeah.
But we are sincerely wanting to try out a new thing.
gonna-
And that's what's going on here. We're wanting to try out morning Minot talk 1 day a week.
See how it works.
Yeah, just see how it works. See what it's like. See if you guys like that as well. Trying to find the right time that is best for the audience. And the other thing we found was that there was just too much going on. That
we had to. There's so much more to talk about.
Yeah, there is. If you're gonna do it, the 1 time a week stuff was not working.
Yeah.
So that's why we're here. That being said, we have an eventful one today.
Yeah,
which is crazy enough. We weren't anticipating that when we said that.
Not necessarily when this idea came to be. This wasn't the plan,
right? But, so yeah, here we are.
It's been an interesting last week.
It's been an interesting last week, but we got a few things to talk about. One is the some things that happened with a debate that we are trying to get set up. So we're going to go ahead and cover that. Mm-hmm. We'll also kind of update on the fire that happened this past weekend. Just a devastating event, really sad. And so we'll kind of look at that and then talk Hurricane Milton as well. The interesting things that have gone with that. Of course, in some ways it hasn't been as bad as expected because it was.
There was talk it could have been.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago and then some,
right?
Which
and it was supposed to be. I think when it hit landfall, it's supposed to still be a very major, 4 or 5, hurricane, and I think it got downgraded to 3.
Yeah, by the time it finally made landfall, and
so we'll be talking all that, but we'll start it off with the information on the debate. So,
Jonathan, you take the floor on this.
Yeah, since I took over the Dakota. One of the major goals that we have is just to create conversation. And we've done that with the conversations that we've had with candidates and legislatures, legislative representatives, all throughout this year. We've had conversations with potential city council members. We've had conversations with city council members. We've interviewed ward county commissioners or candidates, and we have scheduled to interview ward county commissioners that are incumbents. We've just tried to create conversation. We do a weekly Minot talk now that we invite. We're very impartial to who we invite on. It's just we want to hear different sides to the story. And so after an interview that I did end of August, beginning of September, that time frame, the person said, you should pursue a property tax debate. That would be interesting. And I was like, that's a good point. And so I wasn't sure. I didn't want to moderate it. Wasn't sure who we could get. And the name Mike Blessum came up. And so I reached out to Mike, and he was willing to do that, moderate that debate. And so we got that scheduled. We reached out to Rick Becker with unfair property tax, and we reached out to Chad O'Ban with Keep It Local, and Rick obviously represented in unfair property tax, and Chad O'Ban wanted them to be represented by Bob Harms. And so that debate happened and went great. In the lead up to that event, there was Mike said, "Hey, I've heard that Lisa Hermosillo from District 38 would be interested in doing a debate as well." I don't know how that whole story worked of who she reached out to in talks with Mike. It sounds like she reached out to someone who got her in connection with him because they knew that he had been involved in other debates, and there's not many people doing debates locally. And so he connected her with us at the Dakotan. So we reached out to Lisa, and she was interested in doing a debate. And so then we began the process of setting up this debate. Now, it's important. This is a really important piece of information in my mind. This happened more towards the end of September on our end when we reached out, and that's late. Okay, that's late. Obviously, right now, we targeted next week as being the last week that we could have a debate and it still be effective. Obviously, we're not interested in just two sides getting on camera, and not that it would ever happen this way, but yelling at each other and stuff like that, which is the debates that you see at the national stage that for some reason I think people think are going to be repeated in the local stage, and it doesn't happen that way.
Isn't something we're interested in either.
We're not interested in just creating drama. We wanted to have a conversation that would be effective in helping people better understand who they could vote for this political season. So next week was the last week we were going to plan on having a debate if we could get this done on this short time frame. So we had obviously already had contact with Lisa, and so one of the last, I think it was the last Thursday of September, we reached out to Representative Dan Ruby. That Saturday, the following Saturday, I hadn't heard back from Representative Ruby yet. It had only been 36 hours or so, but I hadn't heard back. And I was at an event, and I ran into his running mate, and I said, yeah, you guys thinking about participating in the debate? You guys thinking about participating in the debate? And she's like, you should talk to Rod. Rod is their campaign manager. I'm like, you know what? You're right. That'd make it so much easier if I just reached out to the campaign manager.
Sure.
The scheduling is going to be way easier. Everything would be better. And so I sent Rod Wilson a text message, and I also sent a text message to whom I thought was the campaign manager for District 40. Is somebody early on in the process that I knew was helping with their debate, with their campaign. And so I sent him a text as well, also a district official, to set up a debate with the candidates in District 40. And so what I want to do now in this story that I'm telling is I want to create two paths, because so far the timelines all kind of gel. You can kind of see the motives that are happening on our end at the Dakotan. But I want to go and tell the story of District 40 and District 38, because they are two different stories, and there's two different paths that the stories will go. And so I want to make that very clear and not jumble the timelines together and make their confusion of which district did what. So first, we'll do the story of District 40. Of course, it's not just a story. It's all true. It's all facts. So we reached out to whom we thought was the campaign manager. We found out this week, late Monday, that they were not the campaign manager. That's when we found out that their role was not that, and they were no longer helping with the campaign. That's a very important piece of information. We thought this would be easier and more efficient on our end with schedules. Early on, when we first did our interviews, we reached out directly to candidates, but that was before
the primaries.
Before the primaries, when a lot of those conversations happened. After the primary, we've reached out to so many different people in their roles. It just depends on the organization that you're working with. So we immediately ran into, or we now realize that there was a problem, that he was no longer helping with the campaign, though he was still part of the district leadership. It still made sense that we reached out to him because he was still part of that district leadership. Again, we did not find that out till late Monday this week. He relayed the dates, and dates when you're setting up an event like this is just a classic back and forth. So there was a date that worked on the Dem side that did not work on the Republican side. And then there was a date that we worked on the Republican side and did not work on the Dem side. So then we sent out two new dates, which were going to be next week. And it sounded like on the Republican side that the 15th would work from our point of view. We'll again address that. And then on the Democrat side, it was confirmed that the 15th would work. So we were all in. We sent out times to the contact that we had been working with on the Republican side. We sent out times to the Democrat side. And then we said, with a week out, we'll send you a full breakdown of information, when to be at studio, anything like that. It was a little bit out at that point. So we just wanted to get that information a little bit closer to the event. So great. We had a debate. Again, problem was we were working with the third party on the Republican side. So the Republican candidates who I reached out to via that third party did not get all the information. And where that breakdown happened, whether that's our fault, whether that's whomever's, it's not really the point of it. The point of that is they just didn't get the final confirmation. So in their mind, they had not committed to a debate. In the candidate's mind, they had not committed to the debate. In the Dakotans' mind, they had, because that's what it seemed like to us. So that's a breakdown in communication right there, something that we get to learn from. So on this evening of Saturday, October 5th, I received a text stating that they would not be participating in the debate on the 15th. And Monday morning, I relayed this on to the Democratic candidate. Of course, the news, in my mind, inappropriately broke in a Minot Facebook group on that Monday. And so I reached out to, well, first I was reached out to by a candidate, and then I had a phone conversation with him. I reached out to one other candidate in District 40. There's only two, so you guys can put that together pretty easily. I'm not trying to protect anything. Reached out to both of the candidates in District 40, had conversations with them, just to kind of get a better understanding of where they're coming from and everything. And that's where we learned that where the breakdown in communication happened. The 15th was going to work, most likely. There just wasn't the final confirmation until Saturday, when there was one of the candidates realized that there was a scheduling conflict with something else, and it was not going to work. And at that point, there probably wasn't a possibility of finding another date. There just wasn't. We were on the last week. They already knew that the other date that we had presented would not work. The 17th would not work. So we found all that out on Monday and Tuesday. And so that's the story of District 40. I feel like
you
it's
wrapped that up well.
Fair to say that in many regards, miscommunication is at fault for it. That's what it feels like on my end. We'll call it the debacle that happened with the District 40 for District 40 debate. So that's the story of District 40. And if somebody wants to comment, you could leave a question. I don't know that I'll answer it, because really we're just wanting to present the timeline. You guys can draw conclusions that you want. We want both sides to be fairly represented in our comments. As I said, we just want a great conversation.
Yeah.
And that was the whole goal of these debates. I think probably one of the biggest things, there's the miscommunication, and that may have been all to been worked through. But I will take full responsibility that this is something that we had considered doing in the primary time frame, and then we kind of tabled it because of certain reasons. If this was something that we had pursued more in around August, there had been a debate, most likely. The timelines would have worked way
Just
better
more
for
time
it.
to get it scheduled.
It's just we were up against the end. So that's the story of District 40. District 38, different story.
Yeah, there are two different stories in this.
Right.
Yeah, two had wrapped up in one.
So for the District 38 story, again, we had reached out to, we'd reached out to Dan Ruby that Thursday, and then that Saturday sent a message to their campaign manager. I did not receive a text back from their campaign manager. I haven't received that back, but I did later that day receive an email back from Representative Dan Ruby. He had a couple questions about the debate, and so we sent a response, and then we didn't hear. I'm sure they were mulling things over, but this is only important for this one bit of information. That following week, the week following Saturday, October 5th, we did not receive a response back, and so I think it was Thursday. Late Thursday evening, I sent him an email saying, "Hey, we want to do this. If it doesn't work on your guys' end, totally respect that. Just let us know." And I put a date out there just so that way, as I mentioned, we were up against a time frame that we needed to get this done by. And so last Saturday, October 5th, that morning, I received an email from Representative Dan Ruby stating that they would not participate in the debate. So they declined to be in the debate, which is different, completely different circumstance than happened in District 40. I asked for a statement from them, and so this is the statement from Dan on behalf of District 38. Christina Wolf and I do not wish to interrupt our campaign efforts for a debate at this time. I understand that the Democratic candidates have been approaching organizations to schedule debates so they can get some attention and exposure, and none have agreed to host one until now. Christina Wolf and I accepted the offer for interviews early this year, which can be found by searching the Dakotan on YouTube, as well as the Dakotan website and the Minot Daily News. A better use of our time is to talk directly to the voters in our district, which is what we are doing. Having served for nearly 24 years in the North Dakota House, my votes and views are no secret to anyone, so I'm certainly not hiding them from the public. Christina and I are doing just the opposite by talking to as many of our constituents as possible between now and November 5th. So that's the official statement from District 38. Needless to say, Saturday was an eventful day for us. We had some correspondence there. And then Monday was even more eventful. And I went and I grabbed the screenshot that was posted in the Minot Whiners and Complainers. And I will read this because I think it's fair that we can address what we know to be true and false in this post.
Through that, yeah.
And yeah, so this was posted by the group admin. The post reads, this is a question of why won't these legislative candidates have a public debate with their opponents on why they do not feel like their constituents deserve that? I'm not asking to have a Republican and Democrat debate here, even though I know it plays a part in this discussion due to North Dakota being a Republican state. The Republicans in the district 38 and 40 races seem to feel entitled to the seats because of this factor. Let's keep this civil and about the candidates themselves rather than the Republican or Democratic factor here. This should not be considered a waste of their time when there are other candidates involved. There are currently 2 seats open in each district and 3 candidates running. These 3 in each district should be willing to have a debate. So the candidates are named. And then it's said both Alexandra and Lisa have approached multiple organizations for a debate, and the Republican candidates refuse to answer any of them because, like I said, they seem to feel entitled to both these seats because North Dakota is a Republican state. They don't feel like they can gain anything. All right, so that right there, in my conversations that I had with the Republican candidates, it was said that we were the only ones that reached out. I don't know if that's
as far
true,
as
false,
we
or
know.
otherwise, but as far as we know, and I'll explain why I'm addressing this in a minute. So to the Republican side, I don't know what all happened on Lisa and Alexandra's side. There could have been conversations there. I'm confident there were conversations that were had. I'm not saying there weren't. But as far as on the Republican side, from our conversation as a news source, we had conversations with them, and it was said that we were on District 40 side. Specifically, they said that there was no other organization that reached out. I don't know about the District 38 side. We did not talk about that directly. I do not believe. And then we have the post go on to say, Matt Ruby and Macy Bulinski even have one scheduled with the Dakota next week, and now they backed out as of this morning. And so to address that, obviously the story that we've already had in this kind of addresses it. But while there was communication and while there was an understanding that it was set up on the Dakotan side, and that's why we proceeded based off the information that we had, the candidates do feel that they did not back out because they did not actually, there was a breakdown in communication.
So to them, they'd never confirmed it in the first place.
Which I know is, that sounds preposterous.
But
it sounds crazy.
When you're going through third parties and middlemen, it certainly leaves open the possibility.
It does. And that's our bad.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I kind of addressed that, but I'll say it one more time. We thought we were working with, the guy's a great guy that we were working with, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to throw him under the bus.
Not by any stretch. No.
When I say this. So from my standpoint, I thought he was helping with the campaign. He was not. It was bad information on my end. And so that's where that breakdown happened. So
Stuff happens.
pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. I'll take one shot at Minot whiners and complainers. They're an expert, except from the about on Minot whiners and complainers says, well, it's like Google, only local. And this is a quote from someone. Well, it's like Google, only local, and your answers will arrive by other people with the same question, complaint, whine, or insight. What other search engine are you going to go to get the latest on a big bang heard at 2 a.m. over by the zoo, what they're building over there, or here in the city, stuff like that. And, you know, when it's that kind of information, Minot whiners and complainers is at its best.
Yep.
When you're about the event that's going on to help somebody that is struggling with cancer and stuff like that, it is wonderful because the community is able to see this, to rally around it. But when you're posting,
there's a lot of people in that group.
There's a lot of people, and if you're wanting to know how traffic is, go to Minot whiners and complainers. We don't have a traffic source, and this is so it has a great place. But when it comes to something as sensitive as this, there was no verification by whiners and complainers by the admin with the Dakotan as far as what our role were mentioned in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I guess I didn't ask anybody else directly what other places have been verified. I'm confident Representative Matt Ruby, who's named in here, wasn't, because I believe he commented on this post and had something different to say than what is being conveyed here. So it's kind of a bummer that it broke that way, because I feel like there's a little bit of misinformation.
Yeah, because we still didn't know the whole story at that point.
That was put out there. But nonetheless, here we are. I feel like that pretty well addresses the story just from a factual point of view. So there are some things you can run with. Like I said, Saturday, October 5th, eventful day. For us, that's when we found things were not going to work out the way we thought it was. And then Monday, everybody else found out.
Yeah.
So
I just got into Minot whiners and complainers like the end of last week. And
congratulations.
Then I know. And then Saturday
or Monday.
I was at work and it all went downhill.
It's crazy.
It was a trip.
So that's it. From that,
moving on?
Not yet.
Nope.
One last thing.
One more.
Just for information, on Tuesday night at 7 p.m., we are hosting a live stream with the Democratic candidates. 7 p.m., we'll have District 40 candidate on. That conversation will go for 30 to 45 minutes. We play things very loose when we do these live streams intentionally, because we aren't like everybody else that's pre-programmed. So
I don't know how to do that.
We try not to be. We try to have audio issues.
Yes, we're good at that.
So that's going to happen at 7 p.m. And then following the District 40 candidate, we'll have a District 38 candidate that will be on with us. Get some live questions. I encourage you to join us for that and ask your questions. If time allows, and if the question is relevant enough, we will ask those questions on that live stream for you. We have no idea what to call it, because it's not a debate.
Still a work in progress.
Forum. It's kind of a forum. That's what I feel like it's most thing is. But we'll have more information on that today. We plan on having that. We plan on having that out this afternoon or this evening. So excited for that. It'll be a good conversation. And ultimately, that's what our goal is to create conversation. In district or in Minot and Ward County and in North Dakota. Our mission, when we talk about it, it's to provide news, national news that affects North Dakota news that affects Ward County, and local news. That's the kind of the litmus test that we put stuff through, the filter that we put stuff through. Does it meet these standards? Okay, let's go with it.
Yeah.
And so what that has turned into is a lot of podcast media, which is something that we really are fans of and think is part of the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of the style that we've done. The written word has decreased, though we're not opposed to it. we'll probably bring that back at some point when
Might
we have
not be
better
great,
structure.
but we might
Yeah,
not
Kyler.
be great at it. I try my best. Not a great writer, but we're working on getting it back rolling again.
And so, but that's who we are.
Yeah.
Ultimately creating conversation in a
Trying
way that you would want to consume it as the
the audience
listener,
member,
the
yeah.
audience, however that is
Also, but
identified.
also as a resident of Minot, trying to become more informed.
Yep. If you have a story that you want told, reach out to us. I mean, we can't promise that we tell every story, but we would love to hear about it, because there's a chance that we would have you on one of our Minot Talks and talk about your story. Because if it's a Minot story, within reason, we feel like it should be heard. So it's sad. And I mentioned this to somebody in this whole thing. It's like these debates, we'll use that, but really the whole thing, we've seen the media at Minot, they begin to focus on other areas. Minot Daily News is still very much happening in Minot, but a lot of the other media, we don't have local talk radio really anymore.
Not especially.
We don't have much. Everyone complains about not having local TV and stuff. And so it's kind of the void that we're trying to fill. We're not trying to fill the void of local TV. That's a whole nother ball game. But we are trying to fill that void of
local coverage.
And so if you're looking for that, you found it right here.
And so hopefully this format in the mornings, we can keep this up a little bit. We'll for sure do it next week. And
he's only committing to 1 week at a time.
We'll go from
so
we'll go. If
we're 5 minutes late, blame the traffic, because that's probably the problem.
Exactly. It took me 5 minutes longer getting here this morning.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I live over by the new high school. So I don't even know how to navigate it yet, man. It's dumb.
This time of morning, especially, it's got to be just what's worth 16th Street or the road that goes right in front of the high school.
Right, 21st.
21st.
Yeah. Well, now I get to avoid the bad part of 16th Street. So for me, it's the 21st.
Sure.
But I have to take a left turn onto 21st without a stoplight. And that's a problem.
I bet this time in the morning, especially.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the better route for me might be taking the bypass
at this point. Just go
which is probably longer, and that means I need to get up early. I was actually up before 7 today, so world be happy with that.
I was too. I was ready for it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, is there anything else you want to address on that?
No, I'll find out later today if there's anything I needed to address, because I'm sure if there wasn't, either side will reach out to me and say, hey, you didn't say this part of the story. Fair enough.
And if so, we'll address that later.
Yeah, we may address that later. It would depend. But on our end, this is it. We really do want to move on.
Yeah.
We want to go on to the next conversation.
Hopefully in the future, we can have some debate set up going into future elections and everything. But
I've told some that, next time around. And it's a really good point, Kyler, because when we started our political season here at the Dakotan, we had a goal of interviewing every candidate
in the
state. And I had reasons for that. But the problem with it is, as we got it could have still happened. It can't happen now, but it could have still happened. Part of it is trying to get people to respond, and there's all that just takes so much time. But part of the problem with it is there's so much that really is beyond our audience.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, we're like, well, we could really step into the stage on the state political scene. And while there's still that opportunity, I think taking more of keeping true to with the mission statement that I mentioned, where we focus more on the Ward County area, and then we go out as it affects, will still give us a great channel to the state.
Pull those state stories in that matter most to us.
We're still having conversations. We had one with Daryl Lees that's pretty interesting. Obviously,
I mean, we
cover state. We
just hosted the property Measure 4 property tax
state
debate.
One.
Yeah.
Conversation with Gary Imeneth, who more covers Bismarck area stuff.
You have an interview with Kevin Kramer coming out.
That's going to be released at 9 a.m. today.
So right after this, be ready.
We had an interview with Sandy Sanford. So we've had a lot of state stuff, and we'll continue to produce that. We're excited for when the legislature goes to Bismarck, because we will also be finding some ways to.
We'll be covering that to the best extent we can.
But some different ways.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to that. So, all right, we weren't going to just talk about this stuff here. We're also going to talk about a Elkhorn fire.
Yeah, go through some quick hits with some of the fire updates here. So
They've heard enough of me. Go hit it, Kyler.
All right. I'll take over a little bit. I'll give your voice a rest here. So just some quick updates with a couple of the fires that are still rolling in the western part of the state. There's the Elkhorn fire south of Watford City. It still is estimated to be over 22,000 acres in size. The fire department, as of I think either late last night or early this morning, believes they have about 50% of it contained.
That's crazy.
Yeah, only half.
I think it feels like it's done.
It feels like it to us, right? Like it's not what it was Saturday, Sunday anymore. So theoretically, we feel like it's pretty much over, but very well still going on out there. They're still taking water off Lake Sakakawea, having to dump it out of planes and helicopters.
At least there's plenty of water there.
That's the thing. Yeah, they have a lot of that to work with. Luckily, with this one, there's no reported injuries. Tragically, we do have a second death that was confirmed in the fires. So unfortunately, 2 people have passed away now. One other fire that's still going on pretty heavily is the Bear Den fire, which is kind of by Mandaree. This one is still estimated to be over 11,000 acres in size, so still very large in and of itself. And this one is still roughly only about halfway contained as well. So expect probably those to have more containment by the end of today. I think it's gonna be a little bit cooler compared to yesterday. I don't know about the wind today.
I've heard that they don't expect these fires to go out completely until it snows.
I'm sure not at this point. They'll be smoldering for a couple weeks at this stage.
That's
There's no rain in the forecast or anything.
One good thing about North Dakota is it might be a little bit late, but there is snow on the way.
It's coming to whenever it does. We don't know, but
I guess people create igloos and there's fires in igloos, so maybe it'll just
happened.
smolder underneath there the whole winter. Who knows?
Wait till summer. It's like one of those bugs that freezes in winter and comes back to life.
Yeah.
But those are still in effect. There's a couple other ones. The ones where the 2 deaths were reported, I believe those are 90% contained. So those ones are pretty well done. Fires though still rolling in the western part of the state, so be wary if you are traveling out there. We'll talk a little bit about Hurricane Milton.
Yeah, well, it's also interesting with the fires to consider the impact on oil industry.
Yeah. Well, story with that, there was over the weekend dozens of oil field water hauler trucks that were just cycling water out through to the fire departments out there. It just, instead of hauling water to the sites, they were hauling water to the fire department. So they can just help pump it out.
I know there was sites affected. Obviously the wind had a huge impact on that as well. But
you go look on Facebook long enough for some news sites, Twitter, you'll find pictures of burnt out oil rigs and things like that.
It's not hard. Yeah, don't look on Facebook long enough because that's just a waste of your time.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah. Look for that specifically.
Interesting thing there. Hurricane Milton, crazy deal.
That is. There's been a lot of crazy weather the last few weeks. It's without a doubt.
So, all right. I was thinking about this morning though, because it turned out to be a category 3, right?
Yeah.
But this was supposed to be like the worst thing ever.
I mean, even as of like yesterday morning, it was still like a category 5. I feel like maybe it was down to a 4 at that point, but
I think it was borderline. Yeah.
A day and a half ago, this was still supposed to be a completely devastating kind of storm.
My thing with it is because I've had this conversation with Rob Fuller on his Let's Talk About It Minot interesting podcast.
It is. You should check it out.
But is this idea that this was going to be the worst storm ever driven by the modern social media age?
I'm sure it didn't help anything. I'm sure it definitely helps incite it's going to be worse than it actually turned out to be.
I'm starting to get convinced that, all right, first off, if you know me, I believe in the Word of God. Okay. I believe in the Bible. And so this is going to be kind of an interesting route that I haven't taken before on my comments. But the Bible talks about that at the end of times, there's going to be just call it storms in diverse places. Like it's going to be
just to
it's going to be
simplify
crazy.
it, yeah.
Okay. So there has to be that respect that's given. And it seems like whenever these storms, and I personally believe that if you believe in the Word of God, if you believe in the Bible, that we probably are getting close. getting closer to the end of time. Okay, so there's a hot take for you, I guess, on this Thursday morning. But some of these storms, I just am starting to get convinced that is just driven by social media that, oh, it's gonna be so much worse. People are able to get access to how these storms look. They're not meteorologists. They go and they are comparing this storm to whatever storm that happened 20 years ago. And
Hurricane Andrew,
yeah,
Katrina, whatever.
and they're
it
like,
might
see,
be.
you can look at the eye here and you can see how much more intense that this storm is versus this one. So you don't even know what you're looking at.
Mhm.
And maybe some of them do more than me, but the point is, like,
It's a
they're
big
not
cloud with a
experts.
hole in it.
Right. They're not experts. And so I mentioned the Bible part because I think it's important for us to not go and disclaim everything. I do think we need to be aware of what's going on and etc. But I also think that maybe some of this is blown out of proportion by the accessibility of stuff.
Without a doubt. I mean,
That being said, there's still a hurricane that hit Florida
Yeah.
that's hitting Florida, and it's still devastating to them.
without a
But
doubt,
part of when you live in Florida,
that's as an expectation.
it's an expectation, and now they have a solution of wrapping cars in plastic.
I saw that, which is, I mean, if it,
There's
if
no way it works,
I
right?
can't imagine. I mean, I guess never say never, but I can't imagine
That's crazy. That'd be crazy.
if it actually. I saw the picture of that where they drove over it, then they wrapped the whole car up in like a big plastic wrap and said they sealed it somehow.
They tied it off.
I just don't know how you can. Yeah, like how's it going to be sealed at that point?
Right. Yeah, that's crazy.
And
That's crazy.
If it doesn't work, all of a sudden now it's worse because it's going to just sit in there longer.
Yeah. I don't know if it's like
I mean,
this much longer.
Yeah,
because
at
the
that
water
point.
does stay there and just sit for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting
Whole
solution.
other side note there.
Some people are quite convinced it won't work. They're like, yeah, you idiot. But I mean, if you were in a spot where your car wasn't going to be fully submerged, you might have a chance.
You might have, yeah. I saw a picture. I don't know where it was of big flood. I don't know if it was in North Carolina or where it was, but recently of a big flood that happened somewhere in a city, and there was this little hill in the middle of like an apartment complex,
Nice.
and like 5-6 people drove their cars onto that hill. Everything else was flooded except that little hill.
Right.
And that was, I was like, that's genius.
Somebody's like, because the one I saw was a Camaro, and they're like, dude, if you have a Camaro, you have enough money to pay for parking, go pay. I'm like, okay, yeah, that sounds really simple, because not everybody else in Florida thought of that.
Sure.
Those parking garages have to be full of like the actually rich people, not the guy that just bought a Camaro.
Exactly.
Or a Corvette.
You can't, there's no way. That's the first time that's been thought of.
Right. Yeah. There's
the 4th, 5th floor of those massive parking garages down there are probably just
they're
packed,
full.
right?
Yeah, I would imagine they're packed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great idea, but I was like, yeah, you're not the first person. So
there's no way.
But it is interesting also, like there was one person that I was tracking, and they're hanging out in the second, they were still at their home, and they're like, hey, someone's like, hey, you need to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, well, we have 2 stories. Our second story won't be affected. I'm like, really? Like that's the take that they have out there. Like, could you imagine?
Your just whole first floor, your house is flooded,
and you're just upstairs
chilling.
Like, no way.
That'd be a struggle. Well, and that's why some people, I think that happens, and then they realize how bad it could be at that point, and that's when they call for rescue.
Yeah, maybe.
That's they then realize they're in over their head,
because if they don't have enough food,
that's the thing.
You have no chance.
No, if you don't have food and water, and if it's not upstairs at that point, I mean,
the water stays 6 days, you're gonna start struggling. I mean, you'll survive, but you're gonna be struggling.
Exactly.
And then the other guy was Lieutenant Dan. Is that his name? Did you see that?
I don't know.
No way. So this was on X. He
was at a press conference.
No, he's not actually a lieutenant. So
okay,
he's some dude.
Okay.
And he got in a 20-foot sailboat, and he attached himself to the dock, attached his sailboat to the dock, and he stayed in the boat overnight.
How'd that play out?
They said he made it.
I mean, he's not dead. There we go.
Isn't that crazy?
That'd be
the wildest ride of your life, man.
I mean, I just
and he's gonna be like being pulled out and then banged
Yeah.
against. It's gonna be
you're
like
going to be taking
that's
water on.
brutal,
Like,
man.
you're not sinking, but you're going
Yeah.
to be getting some water
Right,
in there
right.
for sure.
Some water. Yeah, that's I'm not up for that.
No, gosh, I live in North Dakota for a reason.
Yeah, good. I'm like thinking,
Like,
how much puke has to be in there?
or how strong of a stomach do you have to have
Yeah.
to not?
Right.
Like, how used to that kind of thing do you have to be?
Florida, people in Florida are built different.
They are. I have a friend down there, Reggie. I hope you're doing okay. There was over 20 inches of rain in St. Petersburg,
That's
Florida,
crazy.
and that's just since last night.
And this is actually something that I talked about with Rob Fuller on Let's Talk About Minot. Is there's tornadoes beforehand?
Yeah.
And the deal was we're spending all this money on flood protection in Minot. All it takes is for a flood to come, and it happened last time we had a major flood. That there was tornadoes that started popping up.
It's the thing,
and they didn't land in Minot. I get that, but you go and you put all that money into flood protection, and it takes one tornado to come out beforehand. Does no good.
Just wipes it all. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Luckily, we're north enough that we typically don't have to worry about that. But I mean, even this year we had tornadoes that cause damage in the southern part of the state.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I mean,
it's a crazy thought right there. And I say that's not a conversation. Listen to the podcast with Rob and I, because that's
get the full breakdown of that.
That's where we'll talk about the flood stuff, not here.
Yeah, there's over 3 million without power still down there. There's the eye is finally moving off the east coast of Florida.
So 3 million without power. And so what they do is they go and they get all the linemen, which this is pretty interesting. I don't know if you knew this. I don't think I knew this until this storm. They get all the linemen that help, not for the football teams, but the linemen that help with the
electrician linemen. Yes.
And they get them all in a staging area. And then after the storm, they're like, all right, go get to work.
And they just send, and there's just droves of electricians, trucks driving them.
But then this year, they put them in the Tampa Bay Rays Stadium.
Oh, they were in there?
Yes.
Oh, and no.
The roof got
blown off.
Got ripped off.
Oh, no.
Yeah, there's a picture you can find of.
I've seen the picture of the Rays Stadium that got
the roof.
partially.
But you can find a picture, and there's just cots just lined up all over the field. And it was probably also an emergency center, but it was said that that is also for the linemen.
Yikes. I didn't know. That's why you don't have a kind of roof like that in a place like that, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was just
that roof,
it's supposed to be.
It was supposed to be hurricane proof because it was built.
I mean, it's built in Tampa Bay.
And it was built to be
allow expansion.
Yeah, right. It wasn't like our roof where it doesn't even survive a rainstorm. So that's pretty epic for sure.
That's nuts. Yeah, without a doubt. Hurricane Milton finally, it's going to be definitely affects most of today still, but definitely starting to wrap up.
The question that some are having with both of these storms that have hit the East Coast, and Florida's more, I don't even know what Florida identifies as, is how does it work for voting? And it's a fair question.
Okay.
Because so if you're on the coast and you got a early ballot, like you didn't grab it, what's the process then?
Or you have it but you hadn't mailed it back yet or something.
Exactly. So a few questions there. And so that question, then what it does, and we're not going to jump into them, but then it spawns conspiracy theories,
of course,
that the government is making these storms happen, which is pretty far out there.
So it's a stretch.
You
never say never, but
what the people didn't anticipate was that the government could send in the hurricane, but they could send in the tornadoes before the hurricane.
Yes,
they
weren't ready for that.
They didn't realize the government could do that.
Gosh, when they started, so that means they're
ridiculous.
They're behind Joplin and
what
Norman, Oklahoma.
That stuff is preposterous, and we only joke about it. We're not trying to propagate that. So very interesting. A lot going on in the world.
There is.
One last thing, because we're trying to keep these ones to 45 minutes, so we're at that mark.
I'm gonna wrap up quick here,
but Ward County Commissioners, they had their forum last Thursday.
Yep. You have an announcement from that, do you not? Did someone drop out?
Somebody did drop out.
Yes. It was Ashley Gulke, was it not?
Ashley Gulke, and I have her statement. And her statement is not unique to us. It's something that she dropped on her Facebook page as well. it was an interesting statement. Well, all right, we'll go for it. But
Official
I would have
statement.
loved to interview her. I might still have to do an interview with her because the statement was pretty awesome. Some things in life, this is from Ashley Goldby. Some things in my life have changed between starting the write-in and placing signs everywhere. And now, last night, I'm not sure when this was posted because this was emailed to us. Last night, after discussing it with my husband and friends, I decided to email the auditor and request my name to be removed from the ballot. I was RFK'd. It's too late. That said, I'm starting a smear campaign against myself. Please do not vote for me. At this point, I'd appreciate not having your vote. Also, if you have any signs, please remove them if the one didn't already. I'll be retrofitting them to be Foxy's super sweet corn signs. If you want my opinion about all this stuff, I'm happy to give it. For starters, vote for Miranda Schuler. She's a nice, normal person who is well informed. Also, I have a lot of professional transfers for t-shirts. Fortunately, they just say vote, which is still something I stand by. Please share. So she's dropped out. There's 5, and then there were 5.
Yes.
We have an interview set up with Ron Merritt. I think we have an interview set up with Miranda Schuler.
On that specifically.
Have about the Ward County Commission race. We have interviewed Jedediah Rader. We are just confirming a date with Shelley Wepler. And we've reached out to Jim Rostad, and we're still working on that. So going to be having interviews with most of the Ward County Commission candidates.
That'll be fantastic.
That'll be good. That you guys can look forward to for coverage on that. So we went and put out a quick video on the forum
from last week. Yep,
that happened last week. Did you spend any more time thinking about it at all? Of the forum?
Not a little, not a ton.
So I listened to the forum back because
you watched the whole thing.
Yeah, because I was preparing for these interviews that I was going to be doing, and yeah, I think there's, like, after looking back at it, I feel like there's actually, Ron Merritt wasn't represented.
Yep, he wasn't present.
But I feel like that if you watch it, there's definitely, you can see the difference in candidates, and you can see the quality candidates. And I feel like that forum and that way really did a good job. I think there was some things that it could have been better. I don't feel like it really explained what Ward County Commission does. It sounds like all they do is roads. That's what it sounds like.
By the feeling off the forum. Yeah.
Yeah. All they do is roads.
Yep. Roads and apparently jail stuff.
Yeah.
But it didn't sound like that.
Which they do more than roads.
That's all
what
it sounds like from the commission, the forum, excuse me.
So what you said that. So it's definitely interesting. Looking forward to the interviews with the actual candidates so we get a better feel for that.
Get a little more in depth with everyone that way.
Yep. So if you enjoy the Thursday morning Minot Talk, let us know. Leave a comment, send us a message. If you hate it, let us know. Send us a message. We'd love to hear that too.
Like, subscribe, all the fun stuff.
Yeah, please do. We're
follow us all over the place.
Things are happening. Subscribe on YouTube. There's a chance, that potentially, if you don't subscribe, that you'll miss out on your opportunity to do so. Yeah. And we would really hate for that.
Can't do that now.
Yeah, don't miss out on your opportunity to do it. And I joke. So thank you for watching this episode of Minot Talk, and we'll be back on Tuesday
at 2
p.m. Are we gonna have a special guest? We don't know yet.
Maybe
we'll
find out.
It could be a surprise to us all. But thank you for watching.